after the installation of CentOS. We have looked at formatting, we have looked at mount options, setting up yum repos, passphrase-less access. Now I will be telling you a little bit more about some important files and configurations. So first thing is hostname. So as I was explaining previously, so in CentOS 7 or Red Hat 7 onwards, how we set up hostname has changed a little bit. Means there's a command available, hostname sysctl. I can grab -h. I can use these commands to set up hostnames. Initially, what we used to do was etc sysconfig network. Right, this file, I go to this file and I will write directly in this file. Right, but nowadays we are modifying by that command. If config is the command which tells us the IP address, it is not available by default. So this command is kind of deprecated in the newer versions. So I will use ipaddr, right? So this command is available. So you can see the IP here, which we got, right? Same IP it is telling here, right? So how this IP is set up? Let's say if I want to change an IP, either I can use some kind of a graphical tool, right? Let's say sysconfig network tool, right? Or network TUI, right? Or MC2 NC2 TUI, right? So like if I say NC, right? So network manager TUI, right? I can use this network manager TUI. If I hit enter, it gives me a kind of a graphical kind of an interface to set up my connections. But being a Linux admin, we should be knowing everything command line. So I can go to config network scripts. Under this, we will have a file per interface, right? So our interface is ENS33, right? How we know that? We have seen here, right? ENS33 is our interface. So this interface, I'm setting up an IP. If config ENS33. So I can go and write this file manually. So IP address, I'm giving here prefix gateway DNS servers, I'm giving it here. I can set it manually. I've disabled IPv6, right? On boot, I have said yes, so that when the node boots, my network is up. Type Ethernet, default route, boot protocol, none, right? So I'm not using DHCP. I could have said not a static IP, but through DHCP. I say quit here. I can change that. cat/etc right? So in CentOS 6 or prior to CentOS 7, a lot of device interface namings were controlled by a file under udef, right? rules.d. We will have a file like net70-network, all those names, right? So that has changed in 7. But anyway, as I said, we are not going in a Linux course. We are not worried about why this is coming as ENS33. In initial version, it used to come ETH0. But if I want, I can still put that. I can go and modify the udef file and write a separate name for that entry. Okay, so our first thing is we have to configure DNS. So what is a DNS? DNS is your domain name server or service, right? You can call it the way you want. So it's a server which provides a DNS service. So domain name service means it provides you a resolution from a name to an IP and also from an IP to a name. So as we know, like it's not easy for us to remember all the IP addresses. So we have given us some easy way of remembering, saying, okay, this name maps to this IP. That's a very basic fundamental definition of DNS, which you will see on Wikipedia as well, right? It maps or it helps in assigning or resolving a name to an IP, but DNS has a lot more to that. So it's not that if we don't have DNS, everything will work, right? Certain things will break because we have a lot of dependency on DNS. So let's first configure DNS. So for DNS, what we need a package called bind. I say yum install bind. Oh, okay. I'm already running a yum there. Okay, let's give it some time because I'm running a download repo here. Let me just control C this repo because it's taking a lot of time. Let's set up a repo server first. Set up a DNS server. So I'm saying yum install bind. Bind is a package. So originally the DNS server was called bind, right? In Linux it's called a bind server, DNS server. So that's why the package name is bind. So we see bind has been installed. So what it does is vi/etc named.conf. There will be a file created which will have certain entries like this, right? So what it is telling, it has an option section, which is your global section. Then it has a logging section where you should write your logs. Then it has your zone section and some files, include files. So what is this option section? Option section is telling you where your DNS server runs. By default, it runs on port 53, both UDP and TCP. By default, for query, it uses port UDP. TCP it uses for zone transfers and larger queries. So it is asking me where my DNS server should listen. 192.168.1.240. This is the IP of my server. So I'm saying whenever a request comes on this IP on port 53, there's a service DNS available. You can answer that. IPv6 if you want, fine. If you don't want, I can simply put a comment. Directory, where is the directory of my name server where all things will be looked for. All these things which you see, dump file, the stats file, memstat file, right? They have a lot of things to do with the statistics, the performance, monitoring, and how our server is working. And also I can use secure zones, right? There's a concept of chroot and all, a lot of things we can do. So these files, they are not needed at this level because we are not going specifically into a DNS class. We are just, I'm only telling you how to make it working. Allow query, it's asking you where you should allow query from, right? I can say any, from any, or you can give your own network, right? It can only query from your network. Recursion, yes or no, right? I will explain you that. DNSSEC enabled, no, we are not enabling security. DNSSEC validation, no, we are not having any bind key file. Manage directory file, no, we are not having anything, right? PID, it's fine. Session key, we don't need. If you want to enable logging, we can, but if you don't need logging, I can simply comment this out as well, right? So I'm just setting a very simple basic DNS here. We don't need any logging as well. Then we need to set up a zone file. Zone file means a zone name. What will be the zone name, right? So let's say in our case, our zone is netzilon, netzilon.com, right? In internet class, right? So, okay, again, it's important I tell you because although it's not a DNS class, see, I have modified a section called dot here, right? So what it is actually doing is there's a hint file in each DNS server which is available. So let me just save you and show you. lsfnl/where named. Here if you go, so you will have a named CA file. So this is a list of your 13 topmost DNS server. A to M, if you count, there will be 13. That's the limit of UDP datagram protocol, right? The biggest datagram can carry only 13 addresses. So we have a hint file. So this is the topmost root servers, right? So whenever in the query we go, the last server, the topmost server it hits, it's the root server when a query is not found, right? So this is, it uses that to go to the topmost server. So I can leave this there so that it can go up the top level and find it, right? Or else what I have to do, I have to use some kind of a mechanism for forwarding. If let's say I'm querying something from google.com and I'm asking my DNS server, my DNS server will not know it, right? Because it has only entry for Netzilon domain. So I can forward it to another server which it can ask for or not. Then I can also have a recursion mechanism enabled, and I can say do a recursion and find for me. So how it does a recursion and finds for me, it can use a hint file for that. So this hint file is not mandatory to have, but good to have, right? So I will modify this. So within an organization, your which all servers can reach out to the public wide will be very restricted. It should not be that any DNS server sitting within your company can go anywhere and query and go and does a recursion and all, right? So what is a recursion? Actually, DNS does two types of query, recursion and iterative. Iterative means, like as the name say, iterative. Let's say there's a client who asks my DNS server something. If it knows, it will answer. If it doesn't know, it will give the DNS server of the next server it knows, right? And then the client will go and ask the next DNS server. Similarly, it will go, it does an iteration. But recursion means if my recursion is enabled, the very first DNS server it queries, it will either answer it or it will say record not found and next domain, right? So it's its responsibility to find, do a recursion on behalf of the client and find an answer. So obviously recursion could be bad because let's say I'm an ISP and I enable recursion. So what it will do is for all the thousands of clients which are connected to me, for them I have to go and fetch the final answer or say a next domain. So it might delay my thing. So I will say recursion no. And also it has some security implications. We are not going there, right? So if you're interested in only DNS, we can take it. DNS itself will be taking a 1 week just to understand DNS. So I'm keeping things simple. Netzilon.com, we are not talking anything about what is a secondary zone, what is a primary zone, what is a slave, all those kind of things. We are not talking anything here, right? So let me just write Netzilon, right? So I've given a domain netzilon.com and I have said it type is not hint, type could be master because this is my master zone. And what is the name? I can give any name here. Any name you can give. Let's say Netzilon dot forward. I've given a name. So this will be actually a file under var name directory, right? I could have given a path like this, var named / this, but it's not required because already we have given in the topmost path that our directory is var named, right? In the upper section, right here. Let me scroll up. Here we have given. So we don't need required to give an absolute path. So I can give a relative path. So I can give without this, right? So I will leave it here just for the sake of understanding, and I will just create a forward zone for the time being, and I will come back and explain you reverse lookup zone. And it's saying, do I want to include any files here? I'm saying no. I'm just commenting out those two files, right? And what I do, I create a file at this path, right? So I go to cd where named, I go here and I create a file called by that name, touch, right? So I create a file. So look at the permission will be root. So what I will do, I will change it to root named, right? Should be owned by root named. So I say change ownership root named. So now ls-l, so you can see the permission got changed here. So now let's open this file, right? This file will be blank. Either I type everything manually here, yeah, which could be cumbersome because the SOA record at the top, it's sometimes very difficult to remember the syntax, right? So what I can do is I can either copy it from some existing file, right? I can copy it from some existing file. There will be some existing files like cat named localhost, right? I can take this and I can copy this, right, like this, and I will enter it here, right? So SOA is start of authority. So it has 5 fields. Is the serial number, right? Serial number doesn't make much sense if you have only one zone. This is used by slaves to understand whether the record has been updated or not, right? Refresh time. A refresh time is your record expiry, right? When does a zone refresh happens, right? Retry is the timer after which it fails. Expire is your record expiration, right? Okay, minimum is the minimum negative TTL. Again, we will leave all this. We are not going in details here, right? So now what I'm doing here is now I have to create a record here. So again, I will recommend read or go on Google and read what kind of records we have. We have like NS record. NS record is your name server record. I can say ns1.netzilon.com, right? I can say netzilon.com. Name server record ns1 in a record means host record 192.168.1.240, right? So this is the minimum I need for my DNS server to come up. This is called a glue record. These two entries are called glue record, right? So now I will do service named start, right? So I do a status, right? You can see it is running fine. I could have also done named check, right, with the command which is it is saying here. Again, this is again not a DNS class, right? Check config. I can have done check config here on the etc named, right? Or I could have done check zone. Check zone netzilon.com etc name.com, right? Oh, sorry, zone where named what is the name of the file? Netzilon, right? So you can check configuration is okay. So now vi/etc resolve.conf on the client, right? I modify it, right? Client means this is my server itself, but for a resolver, the client library, which is resolve lib.so, I can tell it which is my name server, right? So I can remove this. Let's say I remove this, and I will comment this out, and I will say my name server is 240, right? So now do ns lookup, and what is my host name? ns1.netzilon.com, right? I'm getting an answer. If I do an ns lookup on this, it will not give me an answer because we don't have a reverse zone yet. So let's see the host name. Can I find an answer for this? No, right? I don't still have that. So now let's modify the file to update the records. So now I will put here what? Repo 76 in A and same address 192.168.1.240. Save it, and I don't need to do a restart, I can do a reload, right? Again, the difference is in a production we will not do a restart because it will for a large zone it will take a lot of time, and it flushes out the old zones. And also if there's a zone error, my old records will not be loaded, and there might be an outage, right? So I will say service named reload, right? So now if I query it back again here, see, you're getting the answer, right? So important to understand, my client is asking, right? So same thing, I can go to my other machine and let's try, right? Let's first try without updating the resolver file. So which is that file? So let's see how I think our installation would have completed. Let's do a reboot here. I think we have given an IP of 230 here. So let it come back. So what we'll do, we will try to resolve from this machine. So any questions in the meanwhile? So this is given in my GitHub. If you want to use it, the configuration and all, how we do that, all the steps which I'm explaining. So let me just connect from Putty to one more session, which is 230, which is our new server which we are creating.
Yeah, I have one question here.
Mm-hmm.
Like you gave netzillion.com and all, right? So while
Mm-hmm.
configuring the DNS,
Mm-hmm.
so this all DNS name should be existing. Am I correct?
All name should be
All details like the DNS name and all should be existing. Am I correct?
DNS name should be existing. I did not get you. Are you saying it should be publicly registered? Are you saying that?
Yeah.
No, 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 no. See, it's internal only, right? Because this DNS server is not exposed outside my house, right? Outside my internal network. So it does not need to be registered with any of the registering authorities, right? So although my this Netzilon domain is registered outside, but it has no link to that one, right? It's independent. I could have given it common.com,
Okay. Okay.
right? So it has no relation. Also, this record. So actually, what happens is, so the record which I have created here, you will see this one, right? Which I was calling the glue record, right? So this record, is actually when we, let's say, register a domain, I want to register a domain, let's say pawan.com. So I will go to one of the providers who has an authority to do that, right? So IANA would have delegated to a lot of subsidiaries, right, or authorities who can do a registration on their behalf, right? It could be my ISP, it could be my local some provider. So let's say GoDaddy and all, they will have this ability. So I go and say, let's say pawan.com. So what they will do is they will register my domain, pawan.com, and that will be having an who is record assigned to it. Who is record means, okay, who owns this, right? It could be, let's say, your name, your details, and all in this. Then that registration name, they will ask me, okay, tell me which name server it is hosted on, right? So I can say my, if my name server is public, I will tell my public and NS record and A record to them. So whenever anybody queries from pawan.com, it will land up on my DNS server where I'm playing around, making all my entries, right? So it's called the concept of delegation. So we don't need to register it, like how the IP is, right? For example, although let's say my public IP could be 2.2 dot something, right? But if I'm not connecting to internet, it does not matter. I can use the same IPs inside internally, right? Or I can mask it behind a NAT. Okay, so let's go here. So this is the new machine which we have set up. So here, if I do NS lookup, right? So it, okay, anyway, NS lookup command not found. So let's do yum install net tools. Anyway, NS lookup was part of bind utils. So anyway, I will it it will not take much time. Right, so let me just quickly do bind utils as well. So now let's do this command again, right? So vi/etc resolve.conf, right? It is able to answer because it's talking to my name server, but it doesn't know Ambari. Right? So now what I will do, I will make one more entry here, Ambari, let's say. Ambari, and we'll change the IP to 230. Right, so now if I do reload here, so I will be able to get that answer now. Right, still reverse lookup will not work because we don't have that reverse lookup zone, which is needed for our for our Hadoop cluster, right? Which you already know, we have covered that why reverse lookup is needed, because for data node registration, name node checks that. Okay, so now let's do a reverse lookup here now. Okay, so now let's go back to vi etc named.conf file. So in this we have only one zone. I have removed the hint file also, right? So hint file means, let's say if I'm doing here ns lookup www.google.com, right? Sorry, spelling typo, right? See, it is not able to find it, right? Even though I have set recursion yes, it doesn't know where to go, right? Because I've also taken out the hint file. But if I put a forwarder here, right? Let's say if I go in the options section here, And here if I write some entry, let's say forwarder, I can write it here anywhere. Forwarders, I can forward to Google, let's say Google. I'm just giving one. I can give multiple if I want, and I save it here. Forwarders, spelling is correct. Okay, save it, and I say reload. Wait. Oh, I have to do a restart. Restart. Spelling wrong. Okay, so now it will find it. This is only because of the forwarder. Right, I will remove this forwarder option here. So usually in my network, what I will be doing, I will be forwarding this to my router, which is at my home, right? And I can say recursion no. Right? Right? See, when recursion is no, it is not going. Okay, anyway, we'll look at this concept later. So now let's add our reverse lookup. So we have to create one more zone here now, which we'll be doing for reverse lookup. So how that zone will be? Zone name in curly braces, enter, and curly braces close. So what we'll be writing here in zone name, we'll be writing our address, IP address. What is our IP address? 192, but in reverse order, 168.1. Only the three parts of that, right? Only the network address. 192.168.1 dot in hyphen addr dot arpa in, right? Arpa in hyphen addr arpa in. Okay. So now after that, I will say here type master. This is not a slave zone, it's a master zone. File, I can say, right? Same file as we have given here. Now the file name could be, instead of forward, it could be reverse. So I could have, let's now give without the absolute path. REV, right? So I've given that. Now I go here and I say cp netzilon reverse file, vi ref file. I open this ref file, right? So now this will be a reverse lookup file, right, where we have the PTR records, right? So first section remains same, your NS remains same, right? And here you will be entering your what we say, your reverse lookup entries, right? So how you will be entering that reverse lookup entries here? Here what you will write, okay, let me show you like this first. ns1netzilon.com, and here you will be writing your, you don't need this, this is 240, this is 230, and here what you will be writing, you will be writing the full name, which is repo 96 dot this one, and there should be a dot at the end, right? It's mandatory. If otherwise it will append. I will show you. Let me show you what does that dot has a significance. Ambari dot, right, like this. So what will happen now, right? If I try to start this, let's see. It has failed. It has given me an error. So what is the error? Okay, anyway, we can look in the error and find, but the error is I should have added here 1.168.192 dot in hyphen addr dot arpa dot, right? So this is what it is saying, right? So I'm saying for that particular zone, ns is this ns1.netzilon.com. How it knows ns1.netzilon.com? It knows from the forward lookup zone. Right? So now let's look at the error. What is the error here? Ch ownership root colon named Netstat reverse. Okay, let's start it. Right, so now let's run this command. Now let's see what is the error we are getting. Bad dotted code. Okay, let's see what mistake we have done in that typo. What we have done is this is a PTR record, not a forward lookup record. Right, so now our service is up. So now let's do ns lookup host name, right, and on this also. All clear? Now we can see our forward lookup and reverse lookup both are working. Let me go to another node. It is working. Okay, now let me show you what I meant by that. If I don't give a dot here, right, look at the address which has come. It appends the domain name to itself. If I don't give the dot, see the name, how it is coming. So I have to do a dot here. If I do a dot here, it will not come. If interested in only DNS class, we can do that, right? So it has a very lengthy discussion, what it means, why it works that way, right? Altogether different topic. Right, now let me remove it now. right? This is the reason we have to put a dot there. Any questions in this? So now we have looked at, although DNS should be covered in, was supposed to be covered in the next class, but I have shown DNS here because it was a requirement for configuring certain things. So another important command is, right, which we should be knowing, what connections are there on my host, right? So netstat is a very useful command, right? It takes a lot of option. -t means TCP, listening, protocols without ports or without names, only the numbers. If I don't give n, it will give me the names, service names. It will tell me listening state, right? If I remove the L, so it will tell me see the established time wait states. So I can see what connections are established from which port to what is the state. I can do netstat -r as well to check what is my routing table, and number of options we can do here, right? So we should be aware about these tools. NS lookup, dig also, right? So dig is a more advanced version of, or latest version of NS lookup command. So I can do, for example, dig, let's say the same thing what we were doing now, repo, or let's say ambari.netzilon.com, but it has multiple options, right? So it is resolving me. I can go to a particular node, and I can also I can query a particular host as well, which I can do from NS lookup as well. I can give a particular name server here. I can go a short, right? I want just a simple one here. Short. I can take a text. If I just want an IP, I can say short, right? I can take a text input format. A lot of things I can do here. Also, we can find our public address, right? Right. So how we will find our public address using let's say a dig command, right? So I can do, for example, IP plus short, and then I think one is Google's resolver, which is I think it's a very difficult name to remember. Okay, I will search. And other one is my IP dot open dns.com, right? My IP opendns.com at resolver one.open dns.com. Resolver opendns.com. My IP resolver ver resolve. What spelling is correct? Could not get the address. Oh, sorry. I am sitting on our etc. This has a resolution is like that. Now it will work. Or DNS entry is not able to reach there, right? See, now this is my public address. Same thing I can query from Google as well. I think it was txt here, txt, then my something is there. Let me search quickly on Google. O, yeah, my addr dot l dot google.com at ns1.google.com, right? So it is telling me my address. by public address, interface address. Okay, I think DNS resolution is fine. So now let's look at environment variables. So DNS resolution is, you need to understand in Linux, the file is etc resolve.conf, which is deciding your resolver, means the client, where the client should go and query, which DNS server it should go and query. So it is defined by this file. So this file should be correct. Right. Other thing important to understand here is environment variables in Linux. So in Linux, we will have a lot of environment variables. Let's say I say echo dollar host name, right? So it's an environment variable. I say env, it will show me all the environment variables which has been set for me, right? I can do a set command as well, right? So each has some details, but it's good you play around and understand what is an environment variable, right? So it is telling you that. So let's say I say echo dollar home, right? So it tells me I'm sitting at root, that's my home. I can say echo dollar path, right? So what's in my path, right? So path tells me what all directories it will look for whenever I type a command. Let's say I type a command ls, right? And when I fire an ls command, where it is being executed from, right? It will tell me the path, right? So there will be some internal and external commands, right? I can say type cd, it will tell me whether it's a shell built in or not. So shell built in means they will not fork a subshell. External commands will fork a subshell, right? It's important to understand. External commands will fork a subshell. Internal commands will not fork a subshell. They are built part of the shell. So what it means, right? So let's say I have a variable a is equal to 10. Hit enter. I say echo dollar a. It's fine, right? It's seeing a is equal to 10. But let's say I execute a command called bash, some shell, some script, right? I executed a bash. Let me do an echo here. Echo dollar a. It doesn't know. If I exit here, echo dollar a, it knows that. So a is equal to 10 is known to a particular shell. But when I execute another command, an external command or a script, right, it creates a subshell. So that's why there's a lot of difference how I execute a script. I can execute a script by this way. Let's say some script name. I can execute it by saying sh or bash like this, right? So it will depend upon, it defines what it will do to the script, whether it will execute it in the same shell or it will fork a subshell. So it is important to understand. So variables will be available only within the same shell. So I can say unset a, right? So now if I echo a, it's gone. So now if I want to do export a is equal to 10, I do a bash. See, now it is available. So when I'm doing an export, it means whatever I have set up, it's exported to its childs as well, to the subshells as well. So if I'm executing a script, let's say in a script, I write some command, mostly let's say an external commands, and I execute a shell. Many times we wonder why this variable is not coming, why it's taking blank, because shell runs in a, when I execute a bash script, let's say even if I might have done a source on that, there might be a sub process which was caused by a command execution, and that variable is no longer available there. So that's why we open bash profile and we say export, so that whatever we set is exported across our shells. So I can set environment variables per user. So I am logged in as root. If I want something to be executed for that particular user, I will set in that user's particular directory. Let's say if I say user add example Pawan, right? I say su Pawan, right? So if I want something to be set in his environment variable, I will use his bash profile and set it in his environment. So only it will be available to that user. If I want something to be available across, then I have to go to etc profile .d. Here I can set up my own file. Let's say I say hadoop.sh. Here I can set all the variables hadoop underscore home and to some path, right? So when I save this and make that environment available, it will be visible across all the shells, across all users, right? So whenever we make a change, either we exit and log in back, or we do an execution of that by using dot. Dot is equivalent to source. Dot is equivalent to source command. Any question, Pawan, on this environment variables?
No, I'm good. I'm good in this.
Okay, yeah, so that's the main thing like we have to care of, that how we are writing that environment variable, right? Print env. I can it's good to like print an environment variable. Let's say my host name, term, shell, hist file, this and all, right? Shell level 1, root and all, right? So and keep a backup. So what this shell level 1 means, right? As I was explaining you, echo $a, right? And I say, I'm not sure which shell I am on. Oh, okay. Let me just connect back. Right. So let's say I say A is equal to 10 and I'm saying export. So I say echo 10, fine. I go to bash, I say echo 10, right? But I'm sitting here. I don't know which shell I am at, right? So I can say echo $shl shell lvl shell shell sh, okay, shell lvl, right? So it's telling me 2. If I again do bash here, I've gone to one more shell level down. I so echo shell. So within a script also I can check whether which shell I'm sitting on, right? I come back here, I exit and I come back here. I've come to the topmost shell. So if I do an exit, I will go out. So env, so it's your environment is keeping a track here as well of those variables, which subshell you are in, right? So if I haven't exported it, it will go there, right? So when I say pwd, actually what it is, echo $pwd. This is also keeping a track of that, right? And pwd-l and pwd, they are not same, right? They are not same, although they are giving an output same here. Again, it has how which process you see it in and all those kind of things. Maybe these are all Linux topics, right? So we need to understand what those commands are, whether a command is internal or external, right? It's a shell built-in. Shell built-in will never fork a shell, right? and your external command will focus shell. So that's why I cannot have cd as an external command, because the moment it changes a directory, the parent will get killed and I will never be able to change the shell. So this is what we have done. We have done with environment variables, this and all. So limits systemctl parameters, right? So again, another important thing. So in Hadoop, as we know, we are dealing with distributed system, a lot of data, a lot of files. So our machines by default will not be suitable for having too many files, right? Too many files. Files means it may be inode representation, it may be socket connections, it may be processes, right? Each one needs a file representation. So if I do ulimit here, so ulimit -a, it tells me what is the limit. So if you look here, number of open files I can have is only 10224, right? It's including your file descriptors and everything. One number of processes I can have, all this is limited, right? So to overcome this, I need to modify this, right? How I modify that? vi/etc security limits. I go to limits.conf and I can modify it here, right? So you can read this documentation here. It explains you what it does. Hard limit, soft limit, CPU, number of max processes. For example, let me add it end of the file. I say for each user, right? Or I can give a user, a particular user and all, but I can say for all, soft link what is the soft link? Soft link for what? Number of files. No file, how much? 65535. Hard link, hard limit, right? Similarly, I will say
From where you are getting number of file details? This text.
see here,
Oh, okay, got it.
right? In the config
Thank you.
file only you can specify. In the config file only you can look at, right, what all settings I can set, right? I can set CPU, max code time, number, and proc, right? Similarly, we will set and proc also, right? I will say star here, and let's say I say soft, I say nproc number of processes, right? What I want, right? 65535. So a few things will change here, right? Like these are the most common ones will change in let's say Hadoop from limits perspective. Save it. And other thing what we change here is, like, let's say if I do ulimit -i, you will see they will change immediately. Wait. I will come. Go. I will come. Wait. Similarly, in vi etc sysctl.conf, we can set up a lot of parameters. What parameters? For example, sysctl -a grep. Let's say swap is the most common one, right? Set to 0 or 1. We can change your socket connections or forwarding, right? Disable IPv6. You can increase your semaphores, right? Those kind of things we can change it here, right? All those settings will go here, right? So this is what I was showing you from the other host, right? So if I open this and if I go to my another server where I'm pushing all this from VIC, right? So this is the, I was telling you. So all the settings we are setting, right? So For example, in terms of TCP tuning, your keep lifetime, right? Acknowledgement, semaphore connections, IPv6 disable, all these, right? So all these tunings which we do, right? Smash, max, pages, and all that, dirty page ratio, swappiness, right? All these things we set. So we need to be aware of that. So whatever I have mentioned from in these slides, we should be aware of this to understand or configure Hadoop on top of Linux, right? We should have this much basic knowledge of Linux, right? So services, as you already know that. So how to start, stop services and all. And probably in the next session, I will talk about all these things.
So,
Okay, anything else, Pawan, you have or anybody else have?
This conference will now be recorded.